My life has been a roller coaster of uh, events, and it has taken me quite some time to eventually decide to speak about it. Because for some time now, most people have come up with different versions of what my life has been. People have been told stories, people have made up stories. But I think it's time that we put things into perspective and allow people to hear the story from me as it happened. This is Bittersweet Love Talk Show, and I am your host, Aaltonen Jumba. I have always wondered where I would start telling my story from because it is quite, or it was quite a burden to me. Immediately after I left college, that is some years back, I came into contact with now my ex-wife. And how we met was very funny because I was actually going out to do a presentation on a project we were doing. And I walked into the hotel and our eyes locked. And that was our story. I was young, around 24 years, then just out of college and very vibrant and willing to go and explore the world. Things kicked off, and as usual, when we are all bubbly about the newfound love, we care less about finding information or details about the person that we are attracted to. And so I assumed all these things. I didn't bother to do my background check. I didn't bother to ask questions. I just went in and I did flow with the feelings. And I went into the moment and seized the moment and decided, this is it. We dated for quite some time before I started realizing a couple of things that really did not sit well with me. But at this time, we were into that relationship almost a year. And the first thing that I realized was our age difference. I used to think that the difference in our age was very slight because definitely I knew she was a bit older than me. But I was shocked to find out that she was 10 years older than me. I hoped I could have moved out of this relationship, but I think at that point I felt like it was too late. I had already gotten so into it. And yeah, I said, as it said, age is nothing but a number. And I thought because of what we had experienced, because of the love that we thought we had then, that is something that could still work. Another 6 months into the relationship, I started seeing some green lights on things that did not sit well with me. But again, as any other person who is in love, we choose to either avoid or just assume these green lights. And she initially used to stay out of the country, and she would come in and go out from time to time. During our dating, I managed to get to be employed out of town, And so I had to move from Eldoret to Nairobi. And she stayed in Eldoret. But like I said, from time to time, she would move out of this town and travel abroad. So one day, I am in the office running my usual tasks for the day. And I get a call from my boss who says, I need to meet you immediately in my office. So I left what I was doing and went to see my boss because I thought it is the usual work meeting. So on getting into the office, she sat me down and told me, listen, I have received a call from our office in Bethesda and someone has launched a complaint about you. And I could not figure out why, who, and how this got this far. So she took me through and said, we have complained that you have settled down with someone's wife. This really took me aback. I first could not figure out what this meant because in my head, I knew I only knew one person. And this person I knew was not married. So I asked again, who could this person be? And my boss told me something that really shattered my heart. Because of the privacy of this show, we are not going to mention names. But somehow, my heart was shattered when I was finally told who this person was, and it's someone I was living with. I didn't know how to react to this. And so I excused myself from the office and asked my boss for a day off. And so I went home. And I raised this issue with her, but the response I got, again, as someone who is in love, someone who has been spooked, I chose to believe her over every other person or whatever other things that were being said. And so she went ahead and said that, yes, she was initially married, but they were separated. And that is the reason why she is in the country, in fact, and not where she's supposed to be. On top of this, I also learned that she had a daughter who was almost 16 years old. But her convincing language was so strong that again I chose to stick by the decisions I had made earlier. So life went on, and we decided that we are going to make our own life, and regardless of what people say about us or what people think about us, we convinced ourselves that we loved one another and we will make that relationship work. So we lived together, everything was fine. all lovey-dovey, like any other relationship. We had issues from time to time, until our firstborn came. But before this, we went through a series of hard times. We went through challenges. We lost two of our babies through miscarriages, and we said we will keep trying. So when our firstborn came, we were so happy, and I thought this was something that would help solidify our relationship. But before long, life started happening to us. We started having issues in the relationship. We would fight over nothing and anything. The house became too cold. No communication. Nothing. The only time we would be talking is when we are fighting. I decided it is not going to work like this anymore. So I decided to leave the house. This was the first time I had actually decided enough is enough. Out of the so many years that we were together, and I decided I needed a break. So I moved out, and I went and pitched camp in a hotel. But after a few days, she called in and apologized and said we needed to work on the relationship, that we had come so far to just let things go. And so, because of the child that we had, I made the sacrifice and decided it is okay for me to go back because of the kid. And so I went back, and we stayed together for another 1 year, peacefully, sorting out issues as they came and trying to be as mature as we could. But at the beginning of the second year, things again started blowing out of proportion. And at this time, I thought to myself, we are not going to go back to this bullshit. And so I tried to sit her down to discuss issues so that we can move forward from what was ailing us. But as they say, most of the times when you're having a fight in a relationship, unlike men, women react with their emotions. And so we could not understand one another. Instead, it ended up to be a very bad fight. And for the second time, I decided I can't take this. And so I moved out again. And since I didn't have a place to go, because this was my home, again, I pitched camp in a hotel for a week. And one night I see a message from her saying, you know, I'm pregnant for you. I have been pregnant for the past 2 months. And I could not tell you. And I think this is the reason why I have been reacting the way I have been reacting. I did not understand her reasoning behind this and why she had to wait for us to fight and for me to leave the house so that she could bring up this issue about her being pregnant with a second born. And so we engaged on SMS for quite some time. If memory serves me right, I think for around 3 days. And again, my fatherly instincts told me it is not correct for your kids to be raised without a father. It is your responsibility as a man to make sure that you are there for the kids, the ones who are already born and the ones that are yet to be born. And so again, I swallowed the bitter pill and sacrificed the peace that I had wherever I was and the happiness that I had experienced within that 1 week, and decided, let me go back. I thought this time round things would be different, that she had learned her lesson and we would try to sort out issues as grown-ups whenever they crop up. And so I went back and things were okay for the few months until when the baby came. And we had a rough time at the delivery room because our baby came out still and it was a C-section. And the doctor told me such experiences normally are traumatic to women and you will need to handle your wife with a lot of care moving forward. And so we went back home after she held. And life went back to what it used to be. No peace, no happiness. We slept in different bedrooms. We never used to talk unless it's something that affected the kids. I wanted so much to get out, to just fly away and find my happiness. But I couldn't because I had people who were now dependent on me. And I had to fight for them. So every evening, I took her insults, I took her abuse strongly because of my kids. Every day I felt like I could hit someone and kill them because of the things I used to hear, because of the things I used to be told. But I pushed myself to be stronger because my boy needed me. He had a condition that he needed me to be around him. This went on for a long time, and I tried to convince myself that is because of what the doctors said, the experience that she went through, that was causing all these things. But somehow I started noticing that all these attacks, all these insults were sort of planned, and she had a motive in her head. And one day we had a fight, and I thought I had heard so much of her. So I called my father and told him, we have had a fight with my wife, and I don't think I'm going to be able to sort this issue out. So I will need the help of my family to come and help me. So he asked me to go home. I went home. We had a discussion with him. And then he told me, the best thing you can do is go to her parents and talk to them. Then let them give us a date when we will come and sit down and sort out these issues. But as you're doing that, I want to send your sister to go and talk to her. So I left Kakamega and went to see her parents. But the reception I got from there was not so good, because apparently she had called ahead and she had fed them with so much stuff that they did not even listen to me. And so I proceeded to Eldoret, and my sister had already gotten to the house. And what she was told really broke my heart. And that statement lives in me until today. She was told, you're the witch of the family, and so you have been sent to come and bring your traditional medicine in my house. She was chased out of the house and told, you and that brother of yours, the sperm donor, will not finish me. And so I got home and found my sister at the gate, and she told me what had transpired. So I asked her to go back home, because with the tension that was in the house, she could not stay. So she left. I went back home, and I decided to assume. I did not talk or say anything about what happened. And that day passed. We stayed like that for almost a year, until the 20th of June 2018, when all hell broke loose. We had actually had a disagreement with her. And so I thought, I have been moving out of this house for too long. And this time I have created a stronger bond between me and my kids. And if I left, I will break their heart. But again, I'm not happy. Because my life has been on a marked time, same place. I try to move, but nothing happens. I find myself in the same spot all the time. So I told myself, because um, we have a house that we used as a store. I would try and just be close by so that my kids could be seeing me. So I talked to her and told her we are not going to have these fights all the time. And this time, before I decide anything, I just want to give you space so that you can think if this is what you want us to go through. And so I moved out to the store. I left all my belongings in the house. So every day I would go back to the house in the morning, shower the kids, feed them, take them to school, and go back in the evening, do the same, play with them, feed them, and tuck them in. So this night of the 20th of June 2018, on my normal routine, I went to the house to do what I normally do for my kids. And I got in and prepared dinner for them. I fed them, took them to the bathroom, and actually washed them. I dressed up my son, and then now it was a turn for my daughter to be dressed up. So as I was dressing her up, she came and asked me, "Can I serve you food?" I told her, "No, I'm okay." So she went back to the bedroom. And as usual, I'm always dressing up my kids as we play. So I had laid my daughter on the sofa set as I was changing her diapers, and my back was facing where the bedrooms are. I could hear her say some things in the bedroom, but I could not put together what she was trying to say. But all this time she was cursing and talking endlessly. And so I finished dressing my daughter, and just as I was picking her up, I was hit by something that until today I have really never put together what it was. I felt something so heavy landing on my shoulder that I nearly dropped my daughter. For a minute, I could not recognize where I was. And then I heard my daughter crying. So I picked up my daughter and looked at her and asked her, "What is your problem?" And so she said, "Today is either you kill me or I kill you." I felt so much rage inside of me. I wanted to just drop my daughter and give her a beating of her life. But the cries of my son and daughter could not allow me to do that. They cried so much, holding on to my feet. I could not think about anything else apart from the two of them. And all this time she was raining on me with blows and throwing things at me. Saying all sorts of things, throwing insults and abuses on me. And I felt like I had had it and I needed to do something. And so in the kitchen, we had a store just next to the door. And she had actually grabbed my right hand, and she had like beaten me, and the whole of these knuckles were actually out using her teeth. And the only thing that was going on in my head right now was, it is either she's going to immobilize me or I need to do it before her. And so there's a place behind the fridge I normally used to place a panga. So I reached out and grabbed that panga. And in my head, I was like, I think it is time for me to show her what I really can do. But just as I raised the panga, my son came and actually grabbed my left feet. And he looked at me, he was hysterically crying. I know they were confused. They had never seen us. They'd never seen us fighting this much. And being so close to them, they all came to me and they were crying, holding my feet. And I stood there shaking with the panga in my hand. And somehow, the two angels managed to calm me down. She went and hid in the bedroom. So I decided it is time for me to try and calm my kids and at least try and put them to sleep so that they don't see me leave. Because with the state in which they were in, if I just walked out of the house, I knew it would really damage them. And so I started by singing lullabies to my daughter, and within no minute she went to sleep. My son was the hard nut to crack because he was a bit older, and I think he felt like something was not right. And so I took him to the bedroom that we used to sleep with him and put him to bed. And as I tried to soothe him to sleep, I could feel some activity in the kitchen. And so I decided, because she's cursing on herself and saying all sorts of things and she's not coming where we are, I would not bother. I will try as much as possible to make sure that my son has gone to sleep. and then I will get a chance to leave. A few minutes later, the whole house went quiet. And then I thought to myself, maybe she has decided. She has said enough. And so she has decided to let it go. But as this was going on in my mind, in the bedroom that I was trying to put my son to sleep, we had switched off the lights and the corridor lights were on. So I saw as if someone had just walked into the room from the angle I was sleeping on the bed. My back was facing the door. So I felt like someone had come into the room. And as I was trying to raise my head to see if indeed someone had walked into the room, I felt a splash on the puff jacket that I was wearing. And that splash spread all over to my face. And this was hot milk. She had taken her time to boil milk, not to give to her kids. But to come and pour it on me. And what hurts me the most until today is that she never gave a fuck that I was carrying my son. I was carrying my son and that milk could have burnt him. If it was not for my quick reflex action. That is one picture that never leaves my head. And she never looked back. She went into her bedroom and locked herself up. With all the pain and my slightly burnt face, I told myself I'm not going to leave my son awake. So I made sure he was asleep. And then I left the house. The one thing that was going on in my head was, I have been disrespected for so long. I could not raise my hands on her. I could not kill her the way I felt like I needed to. I couldn't beat her the way I wanted to. Because one, the way I was raised, and two, because of my kids. I didn't want to do anything that would have put my kids in a very bad place. And so I decided, because I could not harm her, maybe I would feel better if I harm myself. And so I got into the car and called the caretaker who used to live within the same compound. I told him I just open the gate for me. But he had heard the commotion and So he tried to calm me down. But I was so furious that he had no option but to open the gate. And when he did so, he had actually just opened one gate. The speed to which I started the car actually made him to close the other gate before I got to that gate. Because he felt something was not right and he could not allow me to leave the compound the way I was. So I actually hit the gate, but not with much impact. And so he came round and opened the door and then took the key from the car and told me, "You're not going anywhere. If you have to sleep, then you'll have to sleep here." So we stayed with him. He talked to me for a couple of minutes, and I was able to calm down for that moment. And so he asked me if he could drive me to any place where I could sleep. So I said yes. So I went to our hotel. We booked a room and I slept there. In the morning, I felt like some level of burden had been taken away from me. But still, I felt a lot for my kids. And I didn't know how they were after that night. And so I told myself, instead of me going to live far away from them, and yet I have a store that is just next to the house, I will instead move my things and live in that store for as long as I can until I'm sure my kids are okay. So I went back in the morning and picked one mattress and my clothes, went into the store, and I created space there in between the chairs. And that is where I called home for almost 6 months. I was so close to my kid, yet very far, because despite the fact that I was just next door, I was not able to see them. And every time I would try to buy stuff for them, buy food, and be supportive to them, this food will be picked and thrown in dustbins. Anytime I tried to gain access to be able to see them, the gate would be locked and the kids will be placed on the other side, and I'll be told to see my kids from the other side of the gate. And so this went on for, at least for me, it went on forever, because a day to me seemed like a year of not seeing my kids. And so I decided I needed to do something about this. Being there, they would see me driving in the evening, but they're not allowed to see me. I will watch them cry, peeping on the grills of the gate and calling my name, and this will just break my heart. And so I decided to move out for the sake of my kids. But I promised myself that I'm going to fight for them every single day. I got a house and moved out of that compound. And then, with the help of my advocate, we instituted a suit against her for the kids. It has, however, been 1.5 years of fights and struggle, of application after application in the children's court, but nothing seems to be coming out of it. The moment I got into my car, what was ringing into my head was nothing short of suicide. I had decided that that night would be the last night I would live. And the idea was to drive as reckless as possible at top speed until I meet my death. And this happens to a lot of us men. The way we are brought up, we are told that crying is for the weak. We are told that we cannot share our troubles with anyone. And we have to suck it all up and be a man. But most of the times, what the society forgets is we are still human. We have feelings. We hurt. We cry. We want to be hugged. We just want to talk to someone and everything will be okay. But the society has none of that to offer. Instead, most of the times when you talk to people, they will judge you. They will look at you in a different light. They will say you're weak. And so most of the times, the only solution that is within a man's reach is to end their lives. But then, God sends an angel, and someone you never knew could save your life, just to stop you in your tracks and help you find a new meaning in your life. It's almost 2.5 years now since this whole things happened. And time has been the greatest healer. My newfound wife and family have played a greater role in my healing process. And I would say that I no longer harbor any grudge. I no longer have any hard feelings. This is, to me, not an issue, and I've healed out of it. But there's one thing that will for always remain a heavy baggage in me. My children. I have never healed. I have never healed from that. I have never moved on from the fact that I lost my kids. I lost my kids to someone who has refused to be realistic, who has been adamant to any calls not to involve our kids in our issues. And this thing weighs me down every evening because I was so used to seeing my kids run to me every evening I go home. And so between me and her, we are good. The feelings that we used to have are now disappeared. My love belongs to someone else. And I've healed from anything she did to me, apart from her stopping me to see my kids and blocking me completely from ever accessing them. And that remains a bitter moment. That I wish I could change. I wish I could get time with my kids. I wish I could put them to sleep and take them to school. I wish I could cuddle them until they fall asleep and tuck them to bed. I wish I could play hide and seek with them as I used to.